There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime.
It doesn't get old or stale, no matter how many times we see it. I mean, this man wants to be prime minister, for goodness sake. China, as I mentioned in the monologue, countries that are close to the end, maybe, or have abandoned their communism, they seldom become Western democracies. They're still great powers, imperial in nature, and of concern, I think, to the West. Greg Autry is co-author of Death by China. He joins us now from California. Are you in Los Angeles, Greg, or somewhere close by?
I'm in Irvine in Orange County.
Very nice indeed, my golly. Now, China is a country we don't really understand. When I say we, I mean most people in the West. We think we do, but I don't think we do at all. Should we be concerned about China's ambitions?
Well, absolutely. And to be clear, we should be concerned about the Communist Party of China's ambitions. The average Chinese ambition is simply to lift themselves up out of poverty and make good for their family, and that's not a concern. What is a concern is the oligarchy, the plutocracy that's running that country, exploiting their environment and their labor to build up a regional military and geopolitical machine that's becoming very aggressive. That's a concern.
No, I can't imagine that Chinese communism has a long future, but if we look at the Russian example, the communism dies. It's not really the issue. The people with power continue to be the people with power.
Yeah, you still have a kleptocracy. You can put a hammer and sickle on it like they do in China, or you can get rid of that like they do in Russia. But the situation is still a group of powerful men who are corrupt and exploitive, using the resources of their country to push their ambitions globally, and that's a concern.
I mean, I noticed at the Mandela funeral just a couple of weeks ago that the Chinese leadership was there. Thus, for example, the Dalai Lama wasn't there. There were various African dictators, Mugabe being an appalling man who is so close to China and grateful to China. This idea that the Chinese government does support so many rancid dictatorships. Does this get down to the Chinese people? Are they aware of it? Does it concern them? Does it shame them?
You know, the Chinese people have had such a miserable political life for a long time, even before the Communist Party. The Qing dynasty in its later years was horrific, and they went through the Civil War period. They generally try to avoid politics, most of them, and particularly since Tiananmen, when they had that feeling that there was going to be democracy and rule of law and a new awakening. It was so bloodily crushed. Most Chinese individuals ignore politics. They accept what they're told by the party that politics isn't relevant to trade or economics. And so China goes around the world. You know, they traded $1 million worth of elephant ivory for AK-47s. China's Norinco Corporation did this, speaking of Mugabe. And of course, they've supported the bastards in Sudan, pardon me. And, we see them play nice with everybody from Hugo Chavez to the folks in Iran. There's no bad exploitive leader that they don't feel comfortable with.
So it's not ideology, it's merely Chinese expansion and making money?
It's power and ideology to the extent that they believe that a group of powerful and what they feel are, intelligent and wise men should rule the country without regard to the individual rights of anybody else in the country. So to that extent, they are ideological peers of the Iranians or Mugabe, even though, the particular brand of essentially fascism is differently labeled.
All right. Now, we hear a great deal about the strength of the Chinese economy and the expansion. At the same time, we see, for example, degrees and rates of pollution that are quite terrifying. Is it real? Is it really as successful and prosperous as we're told? Or if we look behind the surface, is the emperor completely naked?
You know, what you don't realize when you go to Shanghai and you sit there on the Bund and you look across at all these beautiful skyscrapers flying up in Pudong, or you see all the new architectural marvels in Beijing, is a huge amount of that money is built with Western capital. It's the inflow of American, European, Canadian, and other countries' investments into China that keeps this machine going. Unless you truly believe that China's corrupt state capitalism and the Communist Party's economic method of putting more and more assets into state-owned corporations is actually generating economic efficiency, you've got to accept that it's an outside force that's making that happen. If you've got a country where all your capital is provided from outside, all your technology is provided outside, either by forced technology transfer or counterfeiting or just stealing that technology through espionage, you know, it's hard not to succeed when you don't have to invest in R&D and you don't have to invest any of your own money. All you have to do is take essentially a slave labor pool of hundreds of millions of poor rural people and shove them into factories with no concern about the environment. As long as you're willing to do that, it's hard to imagine you wouldn't succeed. There isn't really a economic miracle or genius going on. It's simply that same old story of putting your boot on people, making them work for you, take other people's money and technology, and that's going to work for a short period of time. It's not sustainable, but how long that can go on is a very good question. At some point, it's going to come unraveled, and it's going to come unraveled ugly.
Sobering and fascinating too. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.